guys, so this week we are continuing talking about value and form, and you might say to yourself, oh, Mrs. Turner, we've been talking about this for so long now, but it's one of the main principles of art that helps our art look realistic, look three-dimensional in our drawing. So it's something that definitely takes a bit of practice to master, and today we're going to be doing kind of a fun project using color to add value. So of course, just like always, if you don't want to follow along with me and make a snowman today, that's what we're making, you can of course choose to make something else using forms. Today, just to be festive and fun, because we're getting close to Christmas, I'm going to be making a snowman, and we're going to help him look realistic and not like something that a first grader made by adding value with color. So, of course, you can always draw your own circles if you want, which is kind of my preference because then it can be the size that I want it to. But I also found 3 different size bowls around my classroom that would make up a pretty good size snowman. So if you want to kind of do like I did and hack the circle drawing, you can find 3 different sized round objects to trace around. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and there is a certain technique for how we're going to draw our circles this week, because one thing that helps our art look three-dimensional is overlapping. When things are overlapping, our eye knows that that object has some form to it. So I'm doing my very biggest circle down at the bottom, and then instead of stacking my medium-sized circle on top like this, like you would never see a snowman like that, the top of it would fall off if I just kind of like gently propped up that middle piece. So instead we're going to overlap them, and I'm overlapping mine quite a bit. The more that you overlap your circles, the higher it looks like you're looking at that snowman from up top. So for example, if I'm looking at this marker straight up and down, it's straight. As soon as I start to tilt it this way and I can see more and more of the top of my circles, it looks like I'm looking down on this marker. So it's the same thing with the snowman. If I overlap my circles, say like way down here, it's going to look like I'm kind of looking down at the top of my snowman. And then the further up they go, the more that it looks like I'm looking at my snowman from a straight angle. So I'm going to go kind of in the middle. And this is my medium-sized circle. I am going in with a pencil first. I always try to make it a habit to go in with pencil and then use whatever I'm using to color with to go in and add value after my pencil. So I'm doing the same thing with my last little bitty circle, overlapping it at the top just a bit. And now I have kind of the base for my snowman. So before I go in and start adding value, I want to add some of the details that are going to give my snowman some personality, like the face, any buttons that we want to add. I'm going to add a carrot nose. And my carrot isn't a triangle, it's actually a very long cone. And we know that cones are rounded on the bottom, so I'm going to give my cone a little rounded edge. Maybe along my carrot has some lines that are also rounded. That helps my carrot look three-dimensional. And then he's got a little coal mouth and eyes. And then maybe for a hat, I will do like kind of a rounded shape at the bottom. Maybe I'm either going to do kind of like a flat pancake like we do for the bottom of our cones when we draw them. And then I'm going to draw the little hat top up. So I'm basically making a cylinder for his hat. So one flat pancake on top, one flat pancake on bottom, and then this is rounded as well. So there's his little hat. His hat now also looks three-dimensional because I used forms instead of shapes to create that. And then I'm going to give him some little buttons down his front. So now I know where I want to add value to the base of my snowman and where I don't want to add value. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to erase these lines that are intersecting. But we're, of course, always deciding where our light is coming from before we start coloring. So let's go ahead and do that with my snowman now. I'm going to say that the light is coming in from this direction. That means the lightest part on all of my spheres should be on this side. And then my darkest area of all my spheres is going to be over here. Likewise, my shadow for my snowman, which is a very flat pancake, Don't make the mistake of making your shadow like huge and round like this. A snowman shadow would not be shaped like that. It's a nice flat little pancake underneath our sphere. And then this is going to be the darkest side over here. Okay? So again, if it helps you to draw these little lines of dark, medium, and light, that's always a great idea. But those aren't the only values that we want to see in your sphere. So don't go like super hard right here, medium, and then light. Ideally, we want to see way more tones in between. Think back to our value scales and how many different values we were able to achieve. We didn't just get dark, medium, and light. We got kind of everything in between all of those. So again, you can use whatever materials you want for this project today, just to be kind of different, because I don't think I've showed you guys value using crayons before. I'm going to use crayons. So for the base of my snowman, I've got 2 basic colors, and you can of course use whatever colors you want. If you're using a white piece of paper, you don't have to be kind of as finicky about what colors you're using, but of course, if you're using white paper, white crayon isn't going to show up, so you're going to have to use pressure to get whatever color crayon you're using very, very light, okay? So a snowman we know is made of snow. He's white, but white has lots of different colors and values within itself. So if you're using a white piece of paper, you might want to do a black or blue crayon and start really dark and then get very light. Since I'm using a colored piece of paper, I'm just going to use a color that matches my paper, so a very dark blue for over here. And then I am going to use white because it's going to show up on my colored paper. So I'm going to start on this edge, and again, I'm holding my crayon in a way where it's kind of like almost flat against my page, and that allows me to shade better. I'm not scribble scrabble coloring in straight lines up and down. We know that that doesn't help us blend our colors together. I'm coloring in these like little circles, and I'm putting down layers at a time so I get a really smooth blend. Since we've been doing this for several weeks now, you should have some practice at getting your shading to look very blended and not messy. So I'm coloring in these little circles, and I'm putting down one layer, but of course this is my shadow side, this is my darkest side, so I really want to get it as dark as I can get it on that edge. So I'm going to go back in and add more layers after this first layer. So since I'm using blue paper and a blue crayon, this blue crayon is going to serve as my darkest value, and then my middle value, I'm just going to leave the same as my paper. I'm just going to leave it the paper color. So that kind of acts as my middle value. So all I have to do is blend out this really dark blue kind of into that middle section lightly, and then I can go in with white from the other end. So obviously that's not dark enough on the edge. I want to get it as dark as I can on this edge. So I'm going to go back in and just add layers. I'm coloring in these little circles until I get a really dark value that I'm happy with on this side. All right, now, so we have our shadow underneath my snowman because I know that he's sitting on the ground, and anything sitting on a surface with light shining towards it is going to cast a shadow in the opposite direction. So I have that shadow, but something that we don't want to forget about is anytime objects overlap and there's light shining on that object, you're going to have a little bit of a shadow underneath where that overlaps as well. So I'm not going to forget about that while I still have my dark crayon. I'm going to run it underneath that overlapping sphere in the middle of my snowman and make kind of a shadow under there. So it's very clear that those two things are sitting on top of each other. And I'm just gonna try to blend that out as best I can. Remember, shadows don't have harsh edges. They've got soft edges. If you look at a shadow on the ground, it's not a very sharp line. It's kind of like a blown out, very soft edge. Okay, so now I'm going to go in from the opposite direction with my white crayon, and I'm doing the same thing but in reverse. So it's fun if you have colored paper at home, even if you have like an old colored shopping bag that you could use. Like if your family shops somewhere that gives those paper bags, those brown paper bags, using a white crayon on those will show up really well too, so that's kind of fun. I am going to use the color of my paper as my mid-tone, And then I'm just adding in basically the highlights and the shadows with my 2 crayon colors. So again, all of our highlights and shadows are rounded, not straight. So I'm kind of blending that down. My lightest area is going to be up here because remember my light source is coming in from this direction, so it would hit the top right of my snowman first. Now, once you've finished coloring in all your forms, all you have left to do is color in the details of your snowman. So for that, I have these really fun metallic crayons that I think I'm going to use. You could just use a regular crayon, or you could kind of switch up your material and use something different for the details. Like you could use Sharpie, you could use a washable marker, you could use a colored pencil, or you could just stick with the crayons. All right, so we hope you guys have fun this week, continuing to practice our forms and our values skills. Again, it's such a important thing to know when we're trying to make our art look realistic or 3-dimensional. So if you don't want to make a snowman, again, you can make whatever you want. You could just keep practicing some simple forms and shading those in with color. You could try switching up the material this week like I did. But we hope you guys have a lot of fun. We can't wait to see whatever you make with form and value with color this week. Bye.